The rain had started before dawn, a slow whisper against the ivy-covered walls of Ravenswood Manor. The world outside was gray and soaked, the kind of morning that seemed to drain color from every living thing. Inside the house, only one man was awake: Arthur Penhaligon, master of the estate and one of the wealthiest industrialists in southern England. He had risen early, as he did every morning, to fetch the post and begin his ritual of coffee, correspondence, and solitude. He stepped into the echoing front hall, straightened his robe, and unlatched the door. The wind hissed through the gap, and the rain slapped his face. But what froze him was not the cold. Something sat on the front step. A metal safe. Large, square, ancient, its surface wet with rain and streaked with rust. Arthur blinked, thinking for a moment that the servants had moved some old furniture during the night. But then he saw the handle. It glistened darkly. Blood. Thick, red, unmistakable. A small pool had gathered on the stone beneath the doorframe, mixing with the rain and trailing toward the gravel. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp, and nauseating. He staggered back a step. Caldwell. Within seconds the butler appeared, half-dressed, his expression alarmed. "Sir?" Arthur pointed with a shaking hand. "What in God's name is that?" Caldwell peered past him, then crossed himself before speaking. "A safe, sir. Heavy one, by the look of it. I've never seen it before." "Who delivered it?" "No one, sir. The night watch reports silence. No carriage, no motor car. And if you'll forgive me, sir, the gate was still locked this morning." Arthur's mind raced. Ravenswood was miles from the nearest village. No one could have entered the grounds without being seen. And yet here it stood, this grim, dripping box, as if conjured from the mist. He stepped closer despite himself. There was no maker's mark, only an engraving on the metal door, a serpent devouring its own tail, the Ouroboros. A symbol of eternity. Beneath the symbol was a keyhole sealed neatly with a blob of red wax. The wax was cracked, and from a thin seam at the base a faint warmth seemed to rise. "Good heavens," came a voice from behind him. It was Lady Penhaligon, pale in her nightgown. "Arthur, what's happening?" "Go back inside, Margaret." She shook her head. "What is that?" "There's something coming out of it." The blood had begun to thicken in the cold, forming a dark crust at the edge. Arthur felt his stomach churn. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But we shall find out." By mid-morning, the house was in uproar. Servants whispered in corridors, the cook refused to step outside the kitchen, and the gardener, an odd, taciturn man named Pierce, was found staring out the window toward the front steps, muttering under his breath. A constable was summoned from the village. He arrived drenched and flustered, insisting on writing everything in his notebook. He circled the safe twice, then declared, "Best not to touch it, sir. Could be evidence." "Evidence of what?" snapped Arthur. "A practical joke." The constable swallowed. "A crime, perhaps. We'll know soon enough." At 11 o'clock a black motor car appeared at the gates. Out stepped Miss Edith Langley, private investigator, small, sharp, and unshakable. She had helped the Penhaligons years ago when a business rival forged a will, and though Arthur had hoped never to need her again, he felt a wave of relief at the sight of her. "Mr. Penhaligon," she greeted, shaking off her umbrella. "I hear you've had an unusual delivery." "Unusual is an understatement," he muttered. "Come and see." Langley crouched beside the safe. Her gloved fingers traced the serpent engraving. "Ouroboros," she murmured. "An old symbol. Self-consumption. Rebirth. Quite poetic for a crime scene." "Do you think there's a body inside?" She looked up at him, expression unreadable. "If someone wanted you to think that, they've succeeded. The question is why here, and why you?" Inside, she questioned the servants one by one. Every member of staff had a story. Caldwell swore he locked the front doors before midnight. The maid insisted she heard heavy footsteps in the courtyard just before dawn, but when she looked, there was nothing. The cook said she dreamt of dripping water and woken to find the house silent. And the gardener, his hands shook as he answered, "It weren't me, miss. I saw it there when I went to feed the dogs. I didn't touch it." Langley's sharp eyes fell on the mud around his boots. "You've been digging?" "In the hothouse, miss. Tomatoes." When she ordered his shed searched, they found a set of locksmith's tools and a crumpled note written in a hasty, uneven hand. It was addressed to Arthur Penhaligon. "You owe me more than you think. The truth is buried deeper than your wife." Arthur went pale. "My wife?" Langley folded the letter. "Your first wife, perhaps?" The rain continued all afternoon, blurring the windows, turning the garden into a swamp. No one ate. The safe stood at the doorstep like a tomb. That night, long after everyone had retired, Lady Penhaligon crept into the hall. The candlelight trembled as she stared at it. Then she screamed. Arthur came running. "What is it?" She pointed, her face as white as paper. "It's ticking." They listened. A faint, rhythmic sound came from within the slow, deliberate drip of liquid on metal. Not ticking. Dripping. Langley appeared moments later, eyes sharp. "It's bleeding again," she said calmly. "We open it at dawn." Sleep was impossible. Arthur paced his study, surrounded by portraits of long-dead Penhaligons. He poured brandy but didn't drink. In the flickering firelight, the serpent engraving seemed almost alive, curling, tightening, as though the safe itself were breathing. At first light, Langley returned to the doorstep with 2 constables. The wax around the keyhole had softened in the damp. Embedded in it was a fragment of gold shaped like a crest. She pried it loose and held it up to the gray light. "Mr. Penhaligon, you recognize this?" Arthur stared. It's the emblem from my late wife's jewelry. From her locket." Langley's gaze didn't waver. "And where is that locket now?" "Buried with her," he whispered. "In her coffin." Langley's lips pressed into a thin line. "Then we have a serious matter." The constables tried to dissuade her, but she was insistent. Using Pierce's tools, she broke the lock. The door gave a groan like a dying breath. A wave of stench hit them, salt, rust, and decay. Inside lay a velvet-wrapped box, no larger than a hat case. Langley lifted it carefully and peeled away the fabric. Ice crystals clung to her gloves. The lid slid open and something heavy rolled out, striking the marble with a soft, wet sound. A heart. Human. Preserved in ice and salt. The butler turned away, retching. Arthur fell to his knees. Inside the box lay a folded piece of paper, the ink blurred but legible. "If you read this, my dear husband, it means you have tried to forget me. But love sealed in iron cannot die. I promised I would return to you one way or another." Langley said nothing. She only stared at the faint initials at the bottom, E.P. Leaner Penhaligon. The dead wife. The coroner arrived that afternoon, grim-faced. He confirmed the heart was indeed human and freshly removed. The blood that had seeped from the safe was not old, it had flowed within the last 12 hours. When the family crypt was opened 2 days later, the coffin of a Leaner Penhaligon was empty. No body, no bones, only a hollow space lined with damp velvet and the faint scent of salt. Miss Langley wrote her report in the silence of her rented room at the inn. Her handwriting was steady, though her thoughts were not. There are crimes of passion, and there are crimes of promise. This one belongs to both. The safe was not delivered, it returned. I believe the culprit intended more than terror. They wanted confession, fear, perhaps even guilt to finish what love could not. Arthur Penhaligon sold Ravenswood within the month. He left England, some said for the colonies, others whispered for an asylum. Lady Penhaligon followed quietly, her health in decline. The manor stood empty for years. Grass overtook the steps, ivy swallowed the gates. Yet villagers spoke of the safe how, on certain stormy mornings, travelers saw a dull gleam at the old doorstep. They said that if you listened closely, you could still hear it, the soft, steady drip of unseen blood and the faint echo of a woman's voice whispering from the iron depths. I promised I would come back. And in the quiet that followed, even the rain seemed to hesitate.